A teenager disappears in a small, quiet town. For several months, his relatives thought that he had gone to tour, but everything turned out to be much worse. This crime was solved only 28 years later. Fred Paul Luster was born on February 26, 1978, in Jacksonville, Florida. Relatives called him Freddy. His mother died. Nothing is known about his father. He lived with his grandmother in the small town of Yulee near Jacksonville. Only 8,000 people lived in this town, and everyone knew each other. Fred had an older brother, Travis, and a sister, Dawn. The sister lived separately and was already married, so they rarely communicated. 16-year-old Fred Paul played guitar in a musical group. His grandmother was very religious, and they often attended the local church for the sake of life. Pastor Ronnie Leon Height served in their church, who was very caring and attentive to all parishioners. Pastor helped everyone, especially trying to help troubled teenagers and their parents who turned to him. Pastor played in a church band, so Fred was close to him, and they often discussed music and played together. In the early summer of 1994, the exact date is unknown. Fred told his grandmother that he was going on tour with his band and left. She waited for him to return from tour, but he never returned. On June 5, 1994, a woman walking her dog came across the remains of a person in a dumpster at a gas station near the neighboring town of Lake City. It was a torso without a head and limbs. Investigators never found the victim's head, arms, and legs, despite an extensive search. Also found in the dumpster were 2 bloody kitchen knives, gloves, bathtub stickers, and a shirt wrapped in a foam mattress pad. A witness was found who saw a sports car, dark gray, presumably a Chevrolet Camaro or a Pontiac Firebird, drive up to the dumpster early in the morning and throw it on the mattress. The pathologist could not even determine the cause of death. During the brutal murder, knives were used, which were found in the dumpster. There were 71 stab wounds on the body. Presumably, it was a guy between 16 and 19 years old. The police checked all the lists of missing persons, but did not find anyone matching this description. They even asked for help from the public through the media, but this also did not give any results. At that time, there was no DNA testing. The teenager was not identified and was cleared as a John Doe. The police were sure that only a close person could commit such a brutal murder. It was personal. Several months passed after Freddy's disappearance. The grandmother continued to wait for him, certain that he was still in tours. But the sister could not wait any longer. She felt that something had happened to him. About 9 months later, on February 17, 1995, she filed a missing persons report with the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. The police came to the grandmother's house to search for evidence. Investigators found out that Fred had not left for tours and began looking for him. While the search was ongoing, detectives interviewed Fred's grandmother, and she said that the last time she saw her grandson, he was going to tours and was supposed to meet their pastor. The problem with the search was that the exact date of Fred's disappearance was unknown. The grandmother only remembered that it was early summer. Besides, a lot of time had passed. Fred's sister said that she had spoken to him on the phone for the last time before he disappeared. Pasteur was at his grandmother's house with Fred at the time. The brother sounded upset. Fred asked her to go with him, but she refused because of her husband. Detectives went to the 30-year-old Pastor Ronnie. Pastor said that he saw Freddy for the last time on June 3rd, and then he went home. He could not say anything specific about the tour. The police had no leads, and the case remained unsolved for many years. The police periodically visited the pastor to question him, and the pastor constantly changed his story, which seemed strange, but the police had nothing against him. In 2010, the case was closed due to lack of evidence. In 2014, Fred's sister saw an ad on the website of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children about the machines of an unknown teenager found in a dumpster at a gas station in Lake City in 1995. Her brother went missing around the same time, so she assumed it could be him. The sister reported her suspicions to the police. The police collected DNA samples from Freddy's family and compared them with the bin's dyes. A DNA test in 2016 showed that they were a match. 22 years later, the case was reopened. The police decided to question Pastor Ronnie again, who was almost 60 years old at the time. He claimed that he had nothing to do with Freddy's disappearance, but agreed to create a DNA sample. Investigators sent Pasteur's DNA and the DNA found on the shirt and other items from the scene where the body was found for testing. And Pasteur's DNA matched. As it turned out, Pasteur was driving a dark gray Chevrolet Mara sports car at the time. A witness saw a similar car near a dumpster at a gas station. Pasteur had been very close to Freddy's family since the 80s. As it turned out, he was even an adoptive father to Freddy and his brother and sister. Until 1993, Pasteur Roney had no home and lived in a band bus behind a church. And in 1993, Pasteur bought himself a small house in Jacksonville. Fred and his brother and sister often stayed overnight with him. A search warrant was issued for Pasteur's house. His house was in terrible disarray, more like a dump. They found knives and the same distinctive stickers on the mattress as at the gas station. Investigators also found other disturbing finds in his house. Photos and videos of child pornography. Roney was arrested for Fred's murder on March 7, 2017. But despite all the serious evidence against him, Pasteur continued to deny his involvement in the case. He said he had no idea where the items in the trash can came from, which had his DNA on them. Neighbors recognized the shirt and said they saw Pasteur wearing it sometimes. Pasteur was charged with first-degree murder of Freddy and also charged with possession of child pornography. He was suspected of luring children to his home and abusing and raping them. As it turned out, the children complained to their parents that Pasteur was abusing them. But the parents did not believe the children until they found out that he had killed Freddy. And incriminating photos and videos were found in his home. He was denied release. The police assumed that this might not have been Pasteur's only murder. Perhaps there was another victim. Roney said that dead friends came to visit him in his dreams, but Pasteur himself denied having other victims. Pasteur Roney traveled a lot throughout his life and lived in different cities and states, so it is simply impossible to verify this. Perhaps he moved so often to cover his tracks. As it turned out, Roney worked as a prison bully in the 1970s. In 1981, he received a degree in psychology from the University of North Florida. It turned out that some of the church parishioners were unhappy and disappointed with his behavior. He drank, smoked, and was, in their opinion, an unpleasant person. Some considered him a fraud because he collected money for the needs of the church, which he allegedly spent on his own personal needs. The prosecutor said that he would not seek the death penalty against Pasteur. At the trial, the prosecutor claimed that Pasteur Roney Height gained the trust of the Luster family and later betrayed them by killing Fred. According to the prosecution, Pasteur began to harass Freddy, who spent the night at his place. He refused, and Pasteur killed him in his own home. And he not only killed him, but also heartlessly cut up the body into pieces, cutting off the head, arms, and legs to make it difficult to identify the body. Freddy's sister said that she and Fred once spent the night with Pasteur when he was still living on a bus in 1993. She woke up and saw Pasteur standing naked next to them. The sister was scared and did not spend the night with him anymore. And Fred did not believe her and continued to communicate with Pasteur. Pasteur said that the last time he saw Freddy, he called him on June 3, 1994. Pasteur picked him up in the evening and brought him to his home. Fred spent the night with him, and the next day there was a garage sale. Pasteur wanted to take him home, but he left on his own and he never saw him again. Your two brothers Freda, who also testified at the trial, said that they had long suspected Pasteur of involvement in this case. According to them, Pasteur preyed on these children. For him, it was easy prey, because the parents were not around, and the grandmother was already old and could not properly care for the children. At the age of 65, Pasteur Roney was found guilty, and on April 1, 2022, he was sentenced to life imprisonment, without the right to parole until early release. His sister was shocked by this, and until the very end she did not believe that Pasteur, who was like a father to him, could kill her brother in cold blood. Freddy's grandmother died in 2016, never knowing what happened to her grandson. Local residents asked to demolish Pasteur's house so that it would not remind them of his atrocities, because in their small quiet town such things had never happened before, and his house was demolished. Let's discuss this story in the comments. Thank you all and bye.